Greetings, my super soul sisters, and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about stretch shoes. And this is when you got a pair of shoes that are not, when they're brand new and you slip your feet in and you wait for them to actually, the leather needs to stretch so that they'll become comfortable. Sometimes you kind of have to break them in. It's not just that, but it's also, if you use that as an analogy to life, we're really all on this planet to progress and grow. If you think about a seed, I think I might have mentioned it in one of my previous videos. When you plant a little seed and you water it and you look after it and nurture it, hopefully in a good way, as hopefully we do ourselves, but a lot of people don't do that. They quite often nurture everybody else more than themselves, especially ladies. But when that seedling grows, if you think about it, the process of life is progress. So it goes from a little seed, it comes into a little shoot, then it grows into a little shrub, and then it might grow into a beautiful flower or an actual bush, and then one day it might actually be a great big tree, So it's the whole point of living our lives is to improve and to grow. So I have another pair of shoes that I'll talk about in the next video, which are can-I shoes, and I'll explain that. So look out for that one when you finish this one. That's the next one to come tomorrow. With the with the stretch shoes, it's all about stretching your boundaries. It's going outside of your comfort zone. There's so much fear now in the world, and even just through socialization, like we've had so many restrictions. Oh no, don't do that, oh, be safe, don't do this, think, and we wrap ourselves up, and our kids, dare I say, in a lot of cotton wool. And it's like, that's a bit nerve-wracking, maybe just to be on the safe side, we won't do it. So what we'll end up doing is teaching ourselves, or we've been taught by our parents or teachers or, friends or whoever it might be, socialization again. Don't do this because it could be unsafe. Don't do that because of that. Now, there's got to be some element of risk. You've also got to be able to weigh that up. I'm not telling you to be irresponsible and go out and be huge risk takers at cost to potentially your life or someone else's or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we're here to grow and progress. And I find with a lot of people that come for coaching with me, it's that they get stuck, and it's that stuckness that they kind of get resentful of, and they're just not progressing. They're not moving out of their comfort zone. They're just kind of quite often stuck in Groundhog Day, I mean, it's hard going, and that is something that I'm going to talk about at some stage as well. It's like, just dealing with the mundanity of life sometimes. You've got to, handle all your responsibilities. You've got, if you're married or even not married and have kids, there's a whole lot of, now it just ups the game of responsibility with them. So, you tend to, sometimes your bubble feels like it's shrinking, or if it hasn't shrunk, sometimes it's just stuck at a certain stage. So my whole thing is, when, if you think about a circle and you're a dot inside the middle of that circle, what I found is that that's your circle of influence. That's your circle of comfort, your comfort zone, if you like, your comfort ball, I suppose you could call it, or comfort circle. And what we want to do is just go just a little bit beyond, outside of it. So it's just that next step. It's that, again, getting you into your shoes, taking that next step, and just outside of that circle. It's a little uncomfortable, but it doesn't have to go all out. So sometimes I have people who overcorrect and they go all out to the far end. And if you think about going to the gym at the beginning of the year, so common, and the gyms really milk this baby. It's like, right, we're all going to go and get fit, and you sign up for a 6-month contract or sometimes a year because you're going to get all the special deal, and people go that extra hard. Like they go from they being very comfortable inside their bubble, probably close to the little dot in the middle, not even on the outside. and then they go off and they do this big gym thing and they overcorrect. They go too hard, too far, too soon, and then like they're aching after about a week. It's like, right, I'm going to lose all this weight, and they get a lot of lactic acid burn, and they're like stiff and they're uncomfortable, and they're like, oh, stuff that for a bad joke, I'm not going back. But now they've locked themselves into a contract, and the gyms know that this is a typical scenario, that for 6 months they'll score whether you go to the gym or not. So it's being aware of, don't overcorrect, don't overstretch, and don't put yourself into a position where it's risky or going to put you in harm's way or other people in harm's way. I mean, obviously be responsible with this, but I'm talking about, it's not just learning. Sometimes it can be stretching your leather shoes in a learning environment, and I will talk about that as I mentioned before. But it's more about doing something that you're just not really comfortable with. So for example, let's go with rejection. Big one, especially in relationships. Okay, you've learned, as I've mentioned to you before, like, we have a story, and then we compound it by seeking evidence from multiple places. Okay, and then it stacks and it stacks and stacks to gets to a point where you're so fearful you don't want to take any action at all. It actually immobilizes you, and you get stuck in your shoes in one spot. And you get so dissatisfied because it's like, I'm not growing, I'm not improving, it's not working for me, or this isn't working for me, they aren't working for me, work isn't working for me, whatever it is. We've all got our things that happen, and life happens, it just does. But it's being aware of, I'm seeking evidence. Is that really evidence? So with sometimes you could say, well, actually it's not evident. Really, I'm making it worse than what it actually is, and so I'm compounding it more than it actually is. And we tend to do that. The more bits that we have accumulated over a period of time, the more we have of those. It doesn't take much for you to jump to a conclusion that maybe it actually wasn't that case. So let's take an example of rejection, an example of the relationships. Okay, being out with a guy, if you're single, whatever, or maybe you're separated or whatever the case may be, and it's just like, you had a series of unsuccessful relationships. Okay, and it's like consistently the same kind of guy, just in a different suit or in a different pair of clothing or whatever the case might be, but it's the same person. So really it's your pattern that you're actually picking up, and it's you do need to look at that. That's one of the things that I do try and look at with people who are struggling in relationships, is like, if you're picking the wrong kind of partner, why are you doing that? What are you looking to heal within you by teaming up with someone like that? And there's all sorts of reasons for it. And if you join me on any of my group sessions, courses, workshops, and relationship ones particularly, I go into this in more depth so that you can unlearn unhealthy patterns. So you can first go, I noticed that I keep picking, for example, maybe it might be it's always the leader of a pack who is good looking, and he's a big drinker and a party animal, and all of that, and you have to be beautiful and a big drinker and a party animal in order to attract that. Maybe who knows, maybe that's just an example. But then what you find is that he's a bit of a player, and that you'll end up having a relationship, or you have a physical one but not an emotional one, which is very common, and then you get attached and they don't, and then you go, right, eventually you get the wake-up call and you go, right, or he goes off with somebody else. So I had that. This is just an example. And then that person comes, you go, oh my gosh, I've been rejected. Well, I'm just going to go out, and maybe, you'll get a bit burnt by that, and you might back off for a bit, and then they go in again, and they'll go, well, I'll just try somebody different. But it's the same pattern. It'll be, the player, good looking, drinker, party animal, for example, and then you'll go and pick the same guy, but just in a different physical body form, his suit, what I call his suit. So it's actually the pattern And it's like, well, why are you picking that pattern? And you know, how do you correct that? And that will have started actually in earlier childhood, making decisions around that. So it's fixing the holes in your past that will unplug that, just so that you know. But in this instance, you see where the stretching of those shoes come in, the stretching of your boundaries, is where you go just out of it. After you've done that, after you've dated enough people who've rejected you and rejected, eventually, quite often, you start going, well, there has to be something wrong with me, right? Otherwise I wouldn't have all these failed relationships, right? And it's like, well, you know, yes and not, I wouldn't say yes and no. In fact, it's actually no. It's that you just are unaware of what your pattern selection is. And then once you recognize, oh my gosh, I mean, like I had this, you know, like I had a set pattern and it just wasn't healthy, you know. So this was years and years ago before I got married, you know. And I woke up and I made a very smart decision and married the man that I'm married to, and we've been married now 21 years. So, you know, but he was definitely a break from what I used to go out with. So this is an example of that, is where you go, right, you know, it's actually not me. And I do need to, it's just a pattern correction that needs to be changed. And then what you do is you need to understand, you know, what sets you off, what gives you the butterflies, because the butterflies do go. So you want to be able to hook up with somebody who is actually going to be able to go the distance with you, obviously, as well. And then once you've picked your pattern, go, right, is that pattern actually a good match for me? Now, again, this can feel extremely uncomfortable because there's a lot of comfort in discomfort if that's what you're used to. Now, I'll say that again. It sounds really odd when I say that. There's a lot of comfort in discomfort if that is what you are used to. So people sometimes have a leaning to a certain behavior or a certain person because that feels like home for them. If they've grown up in an environment where they weren't appreciated or, you know, being put down or whatever, that's what they're used to. So you, as a conditioned animal person, it's like, well, that feels comfortable to me, even though I don't like it, but it still feels comfortable to me. So it's a very sort of like, you know, there's a bit of a juxtaposition there, isn't there, where it's just like, well, yeah, and again, you know, it doesn't sync really if you go internally and try and sync it up inside. And it's only when you start doing that. Now, here's where the stretch part comes in. You've now recognized that person, you know, you keep picking the wrong kind of pattern. It's not healthy for you. You know what your type is, etc., etc. Once you've got clear on all of those, the stretch part of your shoes, you might even need to spray a bit of that stretch. I think there's stretch leather, I don't know, oils or something that you can spray on your shoes to actually help them stretch better. And what you do with that is, like, it helps to loosen it up. I think you can put something in there to help stretch it out as well. Sometimes they put those they look like wooden feet, like mannequin feet sort of thing, inside shoes to actually stretch them out. And what you want to do is just have it where there's a little bit of a stretch. So first of all, your little bit of a stretch might be, I don't know if I really want to change my pattern, because oddly, not everybody does, you know, because it's too comfortable for them. So you've got to ask yourself, is this something I really want to change? And here's why you might want to, because you don't want to continually be rejected, okay? So if you can look at it where rejection is for your protection rather than it's rejection, it's a signal from the universe to say it's time to change. You've got to step out of your zone. You've got to stretch yourself. Something's not working. It's a wake-up call. It's an alarm bell. It's like, are you going to address this or not? If you're not, then you're just going to continue feeling rejected, not protected. You're going to feel rejected because you're going to go, well, it's easy. You know, I'm used to it. I can handle it. And then you start dismissing it, making excuses for it. And, you know, you land up really miserable and with a very low self-esteem in this particular instance. So what the discomfort is in recognizing, this could actually be happening for me. I mean, is that happening for you? It could even be in a marriage, like this happens. Just because you're married doesn't mean that you're blissfully happy. Far from it. You got to work hard at these things sometimes. And then what you do is you step out of that and you go, right, okay, I'm prepared to now, I actually do want to change this. I'm tired of, maybe you're alone, or you feel alone. And you don't have the relationship that you want or that you desire, or you've been in a relationship and it's fallen apart and you've been together for years, or whatever it might be. And so first of all, it's going, do you know what? I'm done. I'm at my threshold. I am not going to have this anymore. I'm like, nah, I've got to change this. So that's becoming aware. Then it's like acknowledging you want to actually make a change, which is another step. It's another stretch of your leather on your shoes, where it's like, right, okay, I'm identifying the patterns. Okay, that's not too much of a stretch, is it? It's just identifying it. You don't have to do anything about it. You just have to become aware of it. And then once you've stretched that to that point, then you go, here's where the real stretch now comes in. And sometimes you have to push that that mannequin foot in quite a lot and put a lot of that spray on in order to really just stretch one if one's a little bit tighter than the other, or whatever the case might be. But it's the same thing. And this is where you've got to have the wherewithal to push through, knowing that if you don't push through, you're just going to get the repeat of what you've been getting over and over and over again. So stretching your boundaries, stretching outside of your zone to the point where it's like, okay, I'm going to push through this. I'm going to stay committed. I'm going to do, the healing that I need. It might be that you go and get coaching, that you go for, counseling. It might be, if it's a relationship, guidance, counselor. It might be personal development, just doing this stuff, but actually implementing the exercises. When I say, do something, that you actually do it. Otherwise, nothing's going to change for you. You'll absorb it. You'll go, oh yep, that's interesting. Then you're going to park it on the shelf and go back to your normal. And unless you want normal to change and become, what I like to say, instead of going ordinary, you're going to shift to extraordinary. If you want to be extraordinary in every area of your life, you're going to have to step out of the ordinary to do that. And you can't do that without stretching. You have to stretch your boundaries. You just have to. So it requires dedication to stretch yourself. And I like to try and do it as much as I can, almost daily, like I do definitely with my learning. But in every capacity, like Tony Robbins even talks about it, even physically, like stretch yourself, like with, like if you're doing a jog, maybe you do a little sprint that really pushes your boundary where you might have gone a little bit further, or you might, so I actually do this with my exercise regime. I do my normal stuff, but then I'll try and do at least once a day something that will push me just beyond what I probably would have done before. So, for example, it might be that I'll be walking, and if I'm not with a friend or whatever, I might then do a bit of a run. But instead of doing just, for starters, it might have been just 3 posts or 3 trees. And then the next day I'll go, right, or the next time I do that, I'm going to do 4 trees spaced. And then I'll do that several times until the point where it's like, okay, now I've done 3 or 4 at a reasonable pace. My last leg is going to be full out as hard as I possibly can, so you can push that boundary. So it gives you that exercise push, that little bit, but it's not too much. It's that extra step, just that little step further each day. And before you know it, so this is what happened for me on a physical level. Like I used to just do really slow walking, and then one day I felt, well, I just wasn't getting enough of the adrenaline burn. So I thought, well, I'm not really a jogger, I'm more of a swimmer, if I'm honest. I prefer being in water. And I'd sooner swim the length of the lake than run round it. But, sometimes it's a little chilly to do that when there's snow on the ground. I do that too, but it's, I don't do the full length of the lake or anything. But the whole point here is that, it's like, it's just do that little stretch and back again, little stretch and back again. And what happens is you find that your circle starts growing. And once you start stepping outside of your circle, you can go, oh, I can actually do this. So the danger that you got with overdoing it is if you go too hard to, some people that works, but a lot it doesn't. And then they overdo it, they overcorrect, and then they snap right back into their comfort zone again. Whereas if you do it one little step at a time, a little stretch at a time, a little stretch at a time, before you know it, like I noticed then after a while, I was actually jogging and I was like, man, I've never jogged in my life, and it's okay. I mean, I'm not even buzzed about it, but it's more about, I just want to burn off that extra energy, and it's a health thing for me, staying on top of the health. So find an incentive to do it, and recognize if you've stretched it and you felt uncomfortable. Did you push it too far? Again, it's the awareness. Did I do too much? Is that why I'm being put off? Don't let it put you off. Drop it back a little bit, but stay with that practice until you're comfortable with it. And it's like that whole thing about riding the bike. You're uncomfortable to begin with, but after a while it becomes comfortable, so comfortable in the end that it now becomes a habit. So you want to get to the point where you stretch, and then you're growing. And when humans progress, when they grow, and blossom, it could be something little. I mean, you'll find that one day someone will go, oh my gosh, girl, you look great, or oh, look at you've landed up with a really nice guy, how did that happen? So, and you'll go, yeah, you just did little steps every single day, right? Now, if you really do want to challenge yourself and stretch your boundaries, then it is time to do, I've done this with Tony Robbins courses, where he has you jumping off 50-foot poles and, onto a trapeze, which I actually have done a couple of times now, and even doing fire walks, So one of the things that I'm going to be looking at doing is skydiving with people who are what I call my 8% and 2% clubbers. Is, if they're in Queenstown, we'll go and do, at the end of our training, I'm looking at doing it something like, throwing yourself out of a plane. And here, with a parachute, by the way. Disclaimer there. All right, but just want to let you know, just be reasonable, but don't go and do it if you're absolutely terrified and phobic of heights and not dealt with your phobia about heights, for example. Obviously don't do something that's doing that overcorrection where you snap back and you go absolutely terrified, you're never going to go there again. Do the necessary work, your little steps and stretches to get you to the point where you can do something really big like that. And here's the thing, when you do that, you then go, do you know what, if I've walked on fire and I'm having that sort of issue in my life, whatever that issue may be, you become a lot more emotionally resilient. You go, you know what, if I can walk on fire, I can do that. That's no problem. That's so easy. So I don't know if they found that helpful, but what my challenge for you today is, do something little that will stretch you and share it. Tell me in the comments box, what have you done that has stretched your boundaries today? And then what are you committed to doing every single day for the next week? And then you can go even for the next month, or even the next 3 months. Where are you comfortable stretching a particular boundary? So it might be a physical thing. It might be, I'm going to the gym, I'm going to get an instructor, and I agree to going twice a week for the first week, and I commit to going to the gym 3 times in the second week or something, but it's going to be 20 minutes, and then I'm going to make it 25 minutes, and then I'm going to make it 30 minutes. Just do something that gets you into those shoes. I want you in your shoes, on your path, going your way. So let's find out what floats your boat, what stretches your boundaries, something that makes you a bit scared, but you've got to be brave enough to actually do it, and then have the courage to take that step. Sometimes if you need some support, in the Facebook group, ask for support with the other ladies, and see who can team up with you, or even offline if you've got friends that you can go, look, I need to have someone who'll keep me accountable. Do it, but just share it with me, because this is half the thing. It's like when you verbalize it and say, yes, I will, then you're kind of like, oh crap, I actually have to do that now. And yes, you actually do. So stretch your boundaries. Get your stretch shoes on, ladies. I hope you found that useful. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. If you're in the YouTube side, if you're in Facebook, please just add, whatever comments, and please ask other ladies to come join us. This is what it's all about. I want to help as many people as possible, and it's all free. So why not? Okay. Namaste. Thank you so much for your time.